Hello, everyone. Welcome to That's Not True. My name is Dr. D, and I am here with a fantastic group of friends and um, individuals that are really moving the needle in health and well-being, and in this environment where people are seeking information. And if you're running around in the same kind of circles that I'm running around in, people are kind of confused about what makes sense for their diet, their exercise plan, their sleep regimen. And they're going online and they're using Dr. Google to find out how things work, why they work the way they do. And quite frankly, if you're running around in the same circles I am, people are looking for shortcuts. So I am here tonight to hopefully answer some of these questions for you. If you've never seen one of our shows, this is a show built on all of those questions where you get to ask the doctor, is it true? So I have invited some incredible friends, as I said, on the show with me tonight. I want to start with my very good friend, Sarah Tegender, the Director of Sales for nutraMetrix, my personal girl crush. She is a mother of three, and she is defined as a superstar. If you've ever met Sarah Tegender, you know exactly what I am talking about. Laura's definitely nodding her head, right? Everybody is better with Sarah in their corner. So I'm so happy to have her in mine. Now, I am also joined by Laura Bateman from Oswego. That's upstate New York, I'm understanding. And you are an educator and also working in the health and nutrition industry in her own health store, her own health entrepreneurial space. I'm here with Trista Pola from Hudson Valley, New York, with a background in real estate appraisal, but also helping people engage in really finding their very best health. And then Allison, you in one of my favorite, the great state of Buffalo, right? One of my favorite places to visit and one of my favorite people to visit with. Allison is with us here today, and she has, I was really excited about the question that she'd said that some people were moving around her and asking. And so tonight I wanted to have Allison, Trista, Laura, and Sarah all come on to help answer questions where I'm able to tell you, is something a whole truth, a half truth, or not true at all. Now, I'm going to tell you, this show has been a great hit. I have so many questions that have come in over the weeks, so much so that I think what we're going to do this month is a best of show. We're going to invite a bunch of people on to ask their question, and it's going to be our review of the last 28 days of health. And that's a great call out, because if you're not following Market America Healthy Living, utilizing all of the health education that's out there, following 28 days of health, engaging in your own health challenge, adding one new health step to your life. This may be a better sleep routine. This may be a mindful minute. This may be adding a supplement choice because you know that you should be getting a multivitamin or an omega-3 fatty acid, right? So whatever your little step is or your big step is, the five of us, we want to congratulate you for taking that step. Let's get right to it. Sarah, I want to, I know, big round of applause for everyone on the call tonight. Sarah, I want to get started with you. I know that you are full of questions. Let's start with
I try to be full of answers too. And so, so some of these are just my own, what I tell people. And so, I know I'm not going for supplement advice to Dr. Google, but I have always heard that you can go to a pharmacist and ask them supplement questions and that's going to be helpful. Is that true?
That's 100% true. You know, you nailed it. It's 100% true. You know, when we look at identifying that health advocate for you. A pharmacy is a great place to go. And there's a couple of different reasons why. Obviously, they're very well versed in the pharmaceutical intervention, but because many of them have retail stores, they are exposed to supplements and have been for decades. They're also very aware of that space where medications and supplements play well together. They understand that micronutrients can be depleted by many medications, and as such can make recommendations in regards to if this, then that. And that's a really empowering place for a patient that wants to take a step towards better health, a customer that wants to take a step towards better health, to know that they have someone that's a health advocate that's also educated. Now, I want to kind of turn back a little bit and say, does that mean that your healthcare provider is not going to be a health advocate for you? Not necessarily. Just many of the conventionally trained practitioners are not trained in the use of nutraceuticals, even something as widespread as an omega-3 fatty acid. Calcium or vitamin D, B vitamins, these are so commonplace. A multivitamin would be another great example, Sarah. These are very commonplace. And one of the things that you'll see from health providers is they'll be in a number of different camps, and they'll say, well, if you're not in a certain age group, then calcium isn't going to be of benefit to you, right? Or I wait until a woman is of a certain age before I recommend that she get started with calcium. Or, well, until you reach a certain age, I'm not sure that fiber is really going to help you. And that's where you want to just keep engaging with your practitioner to ask more questions, right? If we can appreciate, and Sarah, you're great at telling this story, that if we can appreciate that foods rich in color, paying attention to the quality of your diet, right, is one of the ways that we can lower risk for chronic illness. If we can appreciate that a higher commitment to healthy living can also, by the same margin, lower risk for disease, knowing that about 90% of diseases today are lifestyle related. How well did you sleep? How well did you move? How well did you eat? Right? To that end, we can then make that connection that a multivitamin that is rich in vitamins and minerals is also appropriate for someone through all ages to support their brain development or a healthy brain in later decades of life. So the pharmacist is also very well, they understand very much not just the interaction, but the forms of many of these nutrients. But probably the magic with the pharmacy, because they have that store, they're not bound to any one brand. So you're going to get an authentic answer from them, much like you will with nutritionally trained physicians, where really what we're interested in is that vitamin D plays a significant role in the health of your body, whether we're talking about supporting a healthy immune system, vascular system, bone mineral density. What I want you to be doing is making sure that your vitamin D levels are sufficient. So I want you to be taking a vitamin D. It also opens up that conversation for, well, how do we define a quality multivitamin? How do we define a quality supplement? So, Sarah, I want to flip the script, and I just want to be sure that everyone else on the call knows that I'm not going to do this to you, but I'm actually going to throw something at Sarah because of her background. Sarah, you're not trained like a pharmacist. You're not trained as a physician, right? You know, but you're commonly making recommendations. How do you decide as a consumer, as a parent, as an advocate for health, but without the pharmacist's training or an advanced degree in medicine, how are you making decisions about supplementation?
Yeah, Dr. D, great question. Because as a mom, there's a lot of things that, you're presented with. And so you have to know how to do this. And So one of the things is, just like cereal boxes or food, I never look at the front of the label. So we got to flip it around and go and look at that. And let me ask you, Dr. D, is it true? Because I've heard supplement facts and nutrition facts are not the same label, correct?
That is also true. They are not the same. And in fact, I'm not to break in here too much, but supplement facts and food fact labels are they're quite different, but also what you're allowed to put in food is very different than what you're allowed to put in supplements. It's not uncommon, Sarah, to see artificial colors, flavors, and the like in foods. And you don't see that in high quality supplements, because the rules on that sort of thing are very strict. So like that's just an easy example. When you see mango flavor or citrus flavor on a supplement, it's because it's coming from an actual mango or a citrus fruit. You can't say it's not like flavoring like we often see in foods. And many people don't know that because they, like, to your point, they think a supplement label and a food label are the same thing.
It doesn't mean, though, that food dyes aren't allowed to go into supplements, because I found that sometimes has happened. And I know a lot of even my like earthy, crunchiest friends try to avoid food dyes. And I mean, and every now and then accidental birthday cake, I don't think is going to, shorten anyone's life, but I always feel like the thing that you put into your body every single day you need to know what it is, and you need to know what's going into your body. Which brings me to the other thing that I look at, and that is, this is why I don't like the front of the label, because what they say is in it, they sometimes hide in these proprietary blends.
Oh.
And they'll put 7, 8 ingredients on one line and then just put a milligram amount or even a microgram amount. And then you're supposed to just guess, is there, like, let's take a blend that maybe they threw in ashwagandha and chromium and zinc and holy basil, and it's all on one line. And you don't know if there's an efficacious amount of those ingredients to even have it make a difference. And there's no transparency. So is that true?
That's true. Label transparency isn't just relevant in today's marketplace. The consumer's looking for a cleaner product, a more pure process for how products are created, how they're handled. That's absolutely true. Going back to what you'd said about food dyes, you're right that if there are food dyes in supplements, they have to list them, and you'll often see chemical monikers for them, not just food dye number 5, which, to your point, is very easy to identify, but other things that are not easy to identify. And I think this is why, both as a mom and myself as a practitioner, we're very happy with the idea or the concept of a product without fillers and binders, that doesn't use artificial colors, artificial flavors, that uses food for its colorant, that uses food for its flavor, its sweetness, its tartness, or its acid.
One thing you forget. So I have one more thing to add to this. And just to add, I did have, a couple years in pharmaceutical sales. So I had enough to make me dangerous, but not enough to have any medical knowledge or background or training other than the 2 products that I had in my bag, so to speak. But I do remember that when we sold against a lower quality product, we would always talk about delivery system. And so I really like looking at people's supplements and trying to figure out, well, what makes this special? And just the other day, I was sitting down with a girlfriend, and she was telling me about her probiotic, and we pulled it up on the internet. And I said, that's, great. Let me look at it, because it's interesting, because what I know is true is that probiotics, in order for them to stay alive, mostly need to be refrigerated unless there's some sort of patented delivery system. Again, that's what I know about from pharmaceutical training, is delivery systems matter. And so we looked at this, and we actually found out that the delivery system was the delivery of the actual bottle. So as long as it stayed in the bottle, there was some kind of patent on that bottle.
Sure.
But she had told me just a few minutes before, she likes the convenience of putting everything in a pill box. So she has it all laid out for 2 weeks ahead of time. So the fact that it wasn't in the bottle wasn't making any sense. And she switched over to our probiotic for that reason, the one that you and I take, because we don't have to worry about refrigeration or a patented bottle. So tell me a little bit about, is that true that, probiotics, the delivery matters?
Delivery matters. And I like that. I'm glad that you said delivery, because where they're delivered is what matters. What we do know about probiotics is that even dead probiotics serve a purpose. They create fodder in the gut. They create a terrain where other gut bugs can chew on them and actually create a very biodiverse um, um, area or environment, or what's referred to as a microbiome. But they need to get to the right location. And so making sure that they're delivered to the large intestine is absolutely appropriate, and that they're protected from stomach acid. Well, whether they stay alive or not, the structure of their body would be ultimately harmed by stomach acid. It would not allow them to be that great fodder that they're supposed to be. So ideally, if there is not a specialized delivery system like a live back technology or a sustained release technology called BioTrack, then you are running the risk of them being degraded by stomach acid. But the real risk there is that they won't ever make it to the large intestine. They won't be delivered to the proper space. That's exactly right. Okay, Sarah, you and I could probably do this forever, because I do actually from Sarah get questions quite a bit where she says, listen, I'm working with someone and these are some of the, the targets that we have. Um, and while it's not always phrased, is that true? Sarah and I have we frequently will have these conversations. We try to expand on really improving everybody's education. So I appreciate that back and forth quite a bit. Now, I know I flipped the script on you. And like I said, Laura, I promise I'm not going to do that to you. I'm not going to try to catch you on a hot seat. But I do want to ask you, because you had actually had a list of questions that you were interested in being able to present on the show tonight. Which one did you choose? What do you want to know?
Well, if it's okay, I'm going to switch gears a little bit over to a fitness question. Dr. D,
Okay.
I've heard walking 3 times a day for 20 minutes is not as good as 1 hour straight. Is that true?
It is not as good. That is true. I wanted to make sure I heard you correctly. 20 but I want to mention something here. So the question is 20 minutes in the morning and then 20 minutes in the afternoon and 20 minutes later after I get done with dinner. Is that the same as prolonged 60 minutes of exercise? And it's not. What this makes me think of, Laura, is Muhammad Ali was famous for this statement. Muhammad Ali was famous for being asked in a media reporter, after a fight, how many sit-ups do you do? And he said famously, I don't know, because I don't start counting until I get tired. Right. And so that's much of where the work happens, is in that intensity. So what is likely not happening in 20 minutes, unless it is an incredibly brisk walk where your heart rate is getting up, you're going up a hill where the glutes are working, the legs are working, almost where you are not walking anymore. You are, no one wants to define themselves as a jogger. Let's just be honest, right? You're either you want to be a runner, right? But, breaking into that, just stumble into a jog, right? Intensity in this case matters. And so what we're thinking of from a fitness perspective is, can you sufficiently get into that intensity of work really, really quickly? Because one of the things that we know about intensity and duration is that 20 minutes is critical. And so unless you are, a high performance car that can go from 0 to 120, just like that, During that 20-minute walk, Laura, you're not going to get into that level of intensity. So like Muhammad Ali, I guess we would have to start counting that 20 minutes when we got tired. And from there, we would see some meaningful work happen. The other thing that's worth noting is that this isn't just about time. It's not about the 60 minutes. Again, it's about that intensity, because there's not good evidence either that simply going for a walk for 60 minutes without some level of intensity and fluctuation um, in that intensity, that prolonged work is going to do any more for you. Your heart rate, your weight loss, your metabolic performance. There is one caveat. We have to put a pin in that, right? The underconditioned individual, right? So I want to put a pin in the underconditioned individual. What we know is that intensity of work for a short duration that it lasts at least 20 minutes for that intensity is what is needed, is what is sufficient. So what I don't want anyone to hear when it comes to physical exercise, physical fitness, metabolic fitness, is that you have to be in the gym for a couple hours a day, or that you have to have this incredible level of intensity for that hour. Your entire workout, Laura, may be that hour. We cannot break it up into 20 just non-intense minutes to get the benefit. Now let's pull that pin out. When we think of, I want to say this before I pull the pin out. In particular, when there's so many more efficient ways to put load on the body and create health in the body, right? Running is, and I believe I said this last week, is an inefficient way to burn that level of calories. But being able to do it under some level of resistance, whether that's a band around you where you're running against resistance, right? Where you're sprinting up a hill, where you're doing that considerable amount of work. Running is good for us. It's just, it needs to be against some level of pressure, some level of resistance, or with load. That is considered a much more efficient way to work out in a loaded way or underweight. And your body weight can be sufficient to do this. Now let's pull that pin back out. An individual that's not conditioned, right, should not be trying to do a freak load of intense work every day, right? The individual, and this is where I want to just mention, like, what is intensity? That's subjective, right? Your intensity, my intensity, this group, our intensity may be very different than someone that is just now exploring exercise or is just getting back into exercise after an injury or a long period of time away. That 20 minutes of a brisk walk may be sufficiently intense for them, right? The idea here is to see that progression. The idea here is to see a progression where we can either be more intense, we can do that walk more frequently, we can go longer on that walk. People that are looking for fat loss, a shift in how their body uses energy will need to have intense work done for 20 minutes of time to see the body go, I need to like break into her savings accounts to keep this up, right? For crying out loud, she's still running, right? What am I going to do? I need to find an energy resource for her. So I guess what I need to do is back it up and say it's only half true. That would be true for someone that is not conditioned and is trying to get themselves back into conditioning. They will see progression towards a goal when they're able to do it for a longer duration at a more intense speed or just a higher level of intensity. But that's when they're going to start to see some of those metabolic benefits once they can get into that place where they're intense for at least 20 minutes. Fantastic. This is good because we get questions from the field, although you guys are going to have to like watch me go out of frame for a minute because I got so excited about showing you my notes that I dropped my questions. I'm back. One of the things I wanted to do is answer a question maybe in the same vein. It's not about fitness, although omega-3 fatty acids are really important for fitness. They are, profoundly beneficial when we think about creating a healthy environment for inflammation, for muscle growth, for recovery after exercise. But it makes me think of something that I know someone or that Christine from Syracuse, New York sent in. And she says, Dr. D, I've always heard that omegas are good for stress, but I don't understand why. Is it true that they are good for stress? They're very good for stress, but the mechanism um, is complex, right? So, what it comes down to is that omega 3 fatty acids, in particular EPA and DHA, are the backbone for a lot of energy systems. So when we think about what is required to create energy in the body, omega 3 fatty acids play a role in that. In fact, fatty acids just in general play a role in that. But omega 3 fatty acids, EPA and DHA, play a significant role in brain health. Um, the better part of your brain is DHA, and other cortex in the brain, other areas of the brain have a high affinity for EPA, which is from fish oil. Now, can it be derived from plant oils? It can. It's just at a really slow rate. Requires enzymes that are sufficient in the body. It requires nutrients like zinc, magnesium, B6 to be sufficient in the body, Christine, to be able to turn omega 3s from like flaxseed oil, as an example, into EPA and DHA. The bulk of the literature on mood, on stress, has been done on fish oils, EPA and DHA specifically, considering that this is really what is the contributor to the brain. Um, One of the things that we know about individuals that have low DHA per volume in the brain is that they are more likely to have memory decline. It's linked to cognitive decline, overwhelm, those sorts of things, which many people see as stress and mood together, that they're overwhelmed quite quickly. And studies do show that having a sufficient amount of DHA in the diet through supplementation, and this is really what's quite fantastic about fish oils, is that they're able to show through machinery in our cells that whether you get your omega 3s through diet, whether you get your omega 3s through supplementation, they incorporate into the brain, it incorporates into the eyes, it incorporates into the skin. It's one of these critically important nutrients in the body. And we start to see with the decline in EPA and DHA in diet or in supplementation that brain volume or memory, cognitive networking, synaptic function can start to decline. You know, one of the ways, Christine, that I often try to answer this for individuals is anything that you would do for a child to help their brain sufficiently develop. You need to make sure that you're doing throughout life to maintain that same level of brain maintenance, that same level of um, health and stability, especially in later decades of life. We know that EPA, from a mental emotional standpoint, has an affinity for certain centers for emotional control. So, like your lizard brain, the amygdala, the fear centers, we know that EPA, a fish oil, again, has a very high affinity for areas in the brain that are responsive to feeling overly stimulated. The frontal lobe that just feels, you know, when people feel overwhelmed, they just feel like a Mack truck is coming at them. EPA has been shown to improve that sense of overwhelm, that sense of stress, that sense of needing to stay focused or clear on something. And it has a great deal to do with ratios. You know, one of the things that's important to pay attention to when it comes to EPA and DHA is that they are essential. Your body cannot make them, so you have to take them. And like I said, one of the things that's really wonderful to see in the literature is whether you're getting it through fish or you're getting it through supplementation, they note that it incorporates into the body in the same way, that it incorporates into the cell membrane in a sufficient way to maintain visual function, to maintain brain function, to maintain cardiovascular health, or maintain a healthy environment with less inflammation or less risk for metabolic dysfunction. What you get with supplementation that you don't necessarily get with dietary intake, however, is a cleaner or more pure product. One of the things that's true about omega-3 fatty acids through supplementation is that they've gone through some level of processing to eliminate many of the concerns that we would have should we consume a pound or a pound and a half of fish each day, whether it's heavy metals, it's toxicity, it's the fact that they're maybe a farm raised fish, right? We're not paying attention to globally the sourcing of that ingredient, which is much to Sarah's point about sourcing of food really matters. In the fact of supplementation, purity of process really matters. So omega-3 fatty acids, in short, work with mood because they need to be simply because they work with mood and stress simply because the machinery that's in our cells requires their incorporation for the literal weight of the brain, for them to be a backbone for energy, for synaptic function. So it doesn't feel like the world is coming at you like a Mack truck. They contribute to the production of hormones, whether we're talking about keeping an environment in an anti-inflammatory environment or simply allowing your body from a steroid standpoint, from a hormone development standpoint. They're the building blocks for the hormones that keep you feeling well, that keep you feeling stable, that keep you feeling alert, mentally focused, and they are critically important in childhood development as well as in later health for brain maintenance and brain well-being. So everybody just take an inventory right now. Are you overly stressed, right? Do you feel overly burdened? There's a lot on your plate, right? So you're spending through nutrients very quickly trying to keep up with all of that. You're spending through nutrients and fatty acids if you're not replacing them in your diet, right? Eating a diet very rich in color with these natural fats or fats in their natural state, then supplementation is a necessity that maybe you've been looking at as if it were a luxury. Okay, I hope that helps. Let's do this. Since I decided to get into chemistry, I know that Trista, you actually have a question that has a little bit of chemistry involved. Trista, go ahead and ask me your question, and we'll decide if it's true.
Okay, great, Dr. D. I've always heard that if you stop eating meat, you lose the enzymes that break meat down. And so you can really no longer digest it properly. And if you go back to eating meat, those enzymes are missing and you'll get really sick. Is that true?
That is not true. You might get sick. And I'm going to tell you why I think people get sick when they go back. Meat is a heavy food, right? Animal products are a heavy food. And when something sits heavy on the stomach, you're definitely going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to have that sense of there's a weight on your stomach for sure. Picture anytime you overate, you ate too much, right? And you often blamed the food for that, when in fact it was likely the quantity of the food, or it was what that food was wrapped in, right? We've had this discussion throughout our 28 days of health, which is it's not the meat that was the problem. It's often the sauces that meat is cooked with or how meat is cooked. Right. That's not to make an argument for meat over plant, right? It's all about balance. But what we often find is what's really hurting people are the sauces, the sugars, the shellacking, the heat. These are how food is prepped for, so it's tasty. Listen, you guys, food tastes good, right? Stop pouring all kinds of jazz on it. Right. So often I think that's why people, Trista, feel uncomfortable. What studies show about enzymes from going from a plant-based or a vegetarian diet to eating meat again is, in fact, that in as little as 3 days, those enzymes are completely sufficient again. The microbiome is a really incredible thing. Your gut diversity is a really fantastic thing. I mean, you may be surprised to know that you can turn over the entire gut biome in as little as 3 weeks, right? And it gives hope to a lot of people that have inflammation, a lot of people that are concerned about gastrointestinal distress, that are concerned about changing their diet. Like they frequently, Trista will say, have I done is this irreparable? Have I done so much harm with the last fill in the blank years that I can't fix this? Right? The microbiome in the gut and the oral biome changes very quickly in as little as 3 weeks. So there's hope for people that are really trying to get a bad diet under control, trying to get, symptoms of GI distress under control. Now, this isn't about that gut bug or something like that. Like that stuff needs to pass, right? And you should be very gentle to your stomach. This is about the individual that just says, I have more inflammation or signs of inflammation or discomfort, and that's trending in the wrong direction. If I don't get a handle on this, if I don't put a wrap on this, this is really going to start to go south on me. Those people should feel good to know that in as little as 3 weeks, we can change a great deal of the gut biome. What many people underappreciate, and this is actually a question that came in on my best of list, but I'm going to do it now, is a lot of people underappreciate the role of natural gut enzymes and natural pancreatic enzymes and bile salts that come from the gallbladder, and the relationship they have with gut bugs naturally in the intestine. Probiotics, natural gut bugs that are found there have a great interplay with the dietary enzymes that come from your colorful foods. That's really the benefit of these colorful foods, right? Is that they are so enzyme driven or so enzyme built. This is where the magnesium or the manganese comes from, the zinc comes from, these things that allow you to stimulate detoxification enzymes is the color in your diet. Well, they're going to play very well with probiotics. Now, a fiber-rich diet creates its own probiotics. A fiber-rich diet creates short-chain fatty acids for healthy energy. And so I really appreciate your question because it helps with somebody else's question that says, is it true that if I change over my gut biota or I start taking probiotics or I start paying attention to my gut, that I might see cardiovascular benefits or mental health benefits, or I will start to see weight loss benefits? And all of those things are true. And so to Trista's question, you can be on this diet that just was no good for you and make that change, make a decision to change your diet. And in a very short period of time, you can start to change the energy partitioning in the body, how you use energy, how you save energy, and then start using it for good, right? Brain power, the endurance, physical endurance, mental endurance. So we can literally flip the scales very quickly because of the foods that we eat and just start to create health around those. So meat eaters do very well, like moving into a plant-based diet, because very quickly the body starts to acclimate. It starts to, shift its enzymes that it creates. And the gut biota go in here and say, okay, I guess we're doing this kind of heavy lifting now. I guess we're going to do this now, right? And it happens in such a short period of time that I want people to feel hope that you haven't ruined everything. That while there are certain foods that are far more problematic than others, another big question that always comes up is dairy. So we're going to put that in the best of list. But just it's a really good question because I think people often will think that they'll be afraid to make a change simply because they think that they're going to be very uncomfortable. And probably it's how they prepared their food that made them uncomfortable. It's probably the amount of food that they ate. And without question, it's focusing on one type of food and not a diversity of food. We see that happen a lot in the diet industry, right? Where people were like, just like legit, like give up on an entire food group. And we really have to ask about the inherent wisdom in doing something like that, right? So I kind of got an extra question in there about the gut biome and how important it is that when you shift the gut biome, you can lose weight, you can improve cardiovascular function, mental health, and well-being. So if you have more questions about that, you of course can put them in the comments down below, or send in a question to market at healthy living at marketamerica.com. Just make sure that you put your question in the form of Dr. D. I've always heard, is it true? Great. Allison, let's move on.
Dr. D, can I just get a clarification? Is it 3 weeks or 3 days you can change your gut microbiome in?
So you change your, thank you. You change your gut microbiome in 3 weeks. The enzymes that Trista's talking about, that happens in as little as 3 days. The biota that's already there, your pancreas, your gallbladder, they go, okay, this is what we're doing now. And that happens in a incredibly small window of time.
Wow, thank you.
Allison, what is your question?
So Dr. D, I run into a lot of people looking for that quick fix for the holidays, or possibly for after the holidays, right? And I hear people asking if keto and intermittent fasting is the best for rapid weight loss. Is that true?
This is fantastic, because we kind of led into this when I said there's this group of people over here that just decide to throw out the baby with the bathwater and they're not eating greens anymore. That's fantastic, Allison. So the question is it true that intermittent fasting or keto diets can be a quick fix? It is true. But to be fair to that question, any diet is a quick fix. It's just not a sustainable one, right? So you can lower your calories and lose weight. You can go on and you can change your diet entirely. You know, it's kind of funny. This kind of piggybacks a little bit on Trista's question about how quickly the body decides to change its energy systems. And it says, I guess this is what we're doing now. And that's kind of that spice of life, that kick in the pants. And people really do early on notice big benefits from intermittent fasting, from a weight loss perspective, from keto eating, even going, we heard about the popularity of paleo diets. And then, now we're seeing things like ketotarians, which is how do you go keto, but you're also plant-based. Pagans, right? They eat fish and vegetables, but not other, there's all kinds of different things that have gotten out there. So Allison, these are variations on the exact same theme, right? We're finding ways to make weight loss over the holidays sound sexy, or the next best thing, because that last one didn't work for you. Why didn't it work for you? Because many of these types of eating programs are not sustainable. Either the individual doesn't sustain them, or something else that they want in life isn't sustaining them. I kind of picked on running a little bit and said it's not an efficient way to burn calories, making it an inefficient way, in my opinion, for you to be able to lose fat, right? The more muscular work you can do, the more energy that gets put out, the more calories that need to be burned to be able to keep up that demand. So what I think is happening with this change in diet, or the keto or the intermittent fasting, is people make these mistakes. One, they think they're going to eat like that forever. And while there are some long-term studies on intermittent fasting and on keto that show benefits, I want us to ask, what are they showing benefit for? It's not weight loss all the time. That's usually the early sign of what you see. Individuals that follow fasting protocols, keto protocols, paleo protocols, are often making such a big change in their diet because they want mental health, right? There's great evidence for blood sugar regulation with keto and intermittent fasting. There's fantastic evidence for brain health and longevity with fasting. But all of those studies, or all of those proponents, also say you don't do this every day, right? Proponents of intermittent fasting say you change up eating windows, right? It's not always that 16-8. Sometimes they go 18-6, which means they're fasting for different hours. Some women, especially menstruating women, shouldn't do more than 12-12, right? So they should never fast more than 12 hours, simply because women are subject to their hormone cycles. And so intermittent fasting can be a problem. So I think what ends up happening, and I'm going to steal a line from Sarah Tegendo. Sarah, I will often hear say, you're asking the wrong question, right? Um, and so is it good, Allison, for a quick fix? Yes, but I would say you could actually pull your diet out of the hat for a quick fix. It's a sustainable one that we're looking for. So what is it that someone after the holidays wants to achieve, after they've put in the work for those 3 weeks? What do they want to achieve? Do they want to maintain lean muscle mass? A ketogenic diet, a high fat diet, which is, limiting an essential energy system in the body, which is glucose, right? Carbohydrates, is not going to see the same muscular adaptation, the same muscular endurance that they want. So if their desire is to be on a ketogenic diet, then they need to also tell me that they don't have an interest in muscular adaptation or healthy muscular energy systems, because if you do that for a long enough period of time, you'll start to see limitation there. Allison, the other thing that I think people do is that they assume that intermittent fasting means I can eat whatever I want during those 6 hours, during those 8 hours. Just bring it on, right? Because as long as it's a compressed feeding window, I can eat whatever I want, right? Because I went so many hours without food. That's also not true. Keto or intermittent fasters are, they're very good at meal planning and managing those meals. And in doing so, what you'll find is many people for quick weight loss will go on that very strict ketogenic diet where they limit their carbohydrates to 20-25 grams of carbs in a day. But will find to maintain their mental well-being, to maintain their muscular health, their energy systems, they move up into a 70 grams of carbs in a day, always under about 100, but it will be, some people will choose 50, some people will choose 70, but you can still get many of the metabolic benefits from a ketogenic diet by getting at least 70 grams of carbohydrates a day. So now it comes down to carbohydrate selection, right? And I want to bring this up because of low glycemic impact eating practices. What we're doing with 70 grams of carbohydrates, right, is that we've just opened up a whole world for a ketogenic eater to the vegetables that they can eat, the minerals and the vitamins that they're now going to get. Where people make a mistake with some of these trend diets is that they think that many of the practical applications or principles that they've learned in the past get thrown out the window because there's this new sexy thing, right? Ultimately, what we're talking about is low glycemic impact eating is a diet, a lifestyle, an eating plan that controls for blood sugar, right? So there should be an appreciable amount of healthy fats, an appreciable amount of fibers, right? A fiber, an appreciable amount of protein from varied sources, not one source. So issues with the ketogenic diet is that we often see a complete dismissal of an absolutely essential food group that gives the body one of its preferred fuel sources, which is glucose. Can you do that for a period of time? You can. Conditionally, the body will start to make glucose from fatty acids. We just have to ask ourselves at what cost, right? And how long can you sustain that? Is it a quick fix? That part of it is true. But anything, Allison, is a quick fix. It's what are your long-term health goals? And what I want people to appreciate is whether you eat in a compressed window, if you do it healthfully, right? You are choosing low glycemic impact foods. You don't look at that feeding window as a free for all, right? Where you can eat anything that you want. You're starting to use the principles of common sense that you're supposed to be following, which is eat food in its natural state, choose food based on color. If it's, if it comes out of a box, a can, or a bag, you probably shouldn't be putting it in your mouth. The rest of it is just the dressing of how they took a variation on a theme and made it sound brand new.
Dr. Mason, I feel like I keep like interrupting, and I'm the one who out of everyone has the benefit of talking to you almost every single day. But I got just one more, and that's that I have heard that, and we talked about omegas already today. So I got to get in here with this to say that I've heard that omega-3s are some of the dirtiest supplements in the industry. So is that true?
No, omegas. Again, let's go back to what I'd said about like fish and source. You want to know where your fish came from. You want to know how that fish was, if it's farm raised or if it's wild caught, because the wild caught will have more healthy fat on it. It will have eaten in its natural state. It has not. There's so many different reasons why you should be sourcing fish.
What about
like
even the
wild
type?
caught.
Like when I'm pregnant, I'm not supposed to eat swordfish, right?
Right,
Or
exactly. And what is the reason for that? When you're pregnant, you don't want to eat bottom feeders. You don't want to eat highly muscular fish, because the muscle is also an issue. People frequently will talk about the fat stores and all the toxins there. And that's absolutely true. So we do very much worry about toxicity in eating fish. That is a non-issue in the supplement industry, save this one thing that I want to talk about. The source of omega-3 fatty acids is really, really good. In fact, from an industry standpoint, there's very few places that you can get omegas. This is one of the most highly regulated ingredients in the natural marketplace because of risk of heavy metals, because of risk of contamination. What needs to be controlled for better, and so I'm going to use your words on you, you're asking the wrong question, right?
How take my own medicine here.
How are they handled, right? It's not that the fish oil is dirty. It is often the processing of fish oil that is dirty, right? So they took a pristine oil, a pristine fat, and they applied heat to it. Maybe they use alcohol to pull the fatty acids off. So knowing how your fish oils are processed, this is really what's so impactful. I mean, it's one of the reasons why, even in a marketplace with a huge number of omega-3 fatty acids that I could choose from, I continue to choose the heart health omega-3s because I'm able to confirm. I mean, first off, they carry a Council for Responsible Nutrition. Like the manufacturer is very well regarded. The fact that they use an alkaline process to pull those fatty acids to get the fat from the fish body, that those fish body oils were not degraded by heat, and that it was an alkaline process, not an acidic process, and that some omegas are gel alkaline or gel acidic manufactured or processed, and that just damages the fatty acid. It doesn't allow them to stay buoyant. It doesn't prevent them from oxidizing. Heat definitely doesn't prevent them from oxidizing. And so you want to make sure that your fish oils are alkaline handled, that they are cold and temperature controlled. But I think the thing that really set me apart with heart health omegas is finding out, even once they've been pulled and properly pulled from the fish body oils, is that 100% of their handling happens under nitrogen. And by handling them under nitrogen, not only are you keeping them temperature controlled, you are completely eliminating any chance of oxidation. This is true for many of the isotonic line as well. They're in their packets, whether it's isotonic astaxanthin, women's health, anti-aging, daily essentials. They're all nitrogen packed to make sure that they don't oxidize, and that the powders stay flowing. That it's not about contaminants in this case. It's about control of how those ingredients stay active. Nitrogen is one of the best ways that you can do it. CO2 extraction is one of the best ways you can do it. Water extraction. So knowing that we have products that use, water extraction, CO2 extraction, for example, with the cannabiquin's a great example, that the omegas are handled completely underneath a nitrogen veil so that there's zero chance of their oxidation. Those are the types of things that are so important in this for this question. It's not that the source of the oil was wrong. And this goes back to what you said about the front of the label versus the back of the label. In this case, we're just going a little bit deeper dive, and we're finding out from the manufacturer or the clearinghouse, the distributor of any said product. How is it handled? What more do I need to know? And that was one of the things that really sells me on what type of medicinary I would carry in practice, is just to that end, is to make sure that the handling was proper, because you can get the very best raw ingredients, but if you pull them at the wrong time of the year, that's a problem, right? The active ingredients are spring harvest, fall harvest. You need to know those things. And so it's nice to know that
I feel like they're going to brag about that too in their marketing. Like when you go on to the website and read about it, is it true that if you hold them up to the light and they're cloudy, that you shouldn't take an omega that looks cloudy?
I would say that's probably a half truth. Sometimes there are different things that are put into omega-3 fatty acids to maintain their stability. And so I think where you need to look again is turn on the back of the label and find out if they're using synthetic vitamin E, or are they using, like we do, a natural vitamin E that would stop something like that from happening. The other parlor trick that people do is they'll put omegas in a freezer. And if you start to see some separation in there, that that a bulk of that pill is water, right? So there's all kinds of little parlor tricks, but it's worth going to the provider and asking some questions about the process for sure.
Thank you. Well, now we have good questions to email in and ask other companies.
That's all you have to do. You email mahealthyliving@marketamerica.com. Put your questions as Dr. D. I've always heard, is it true? We'll choose you. Whether we're answering them live in a show like this, we're answering them through the Facebook page. I want to thank all of my guests tonight. Thank you so much, Laura, Allison, Trista, Sarah, for being here with me tonight for, again, a fantastic That's Not True show. Until I get to see you guys next time, I can't wait. These have been so much fun. Make sure that you're posting your lifestyle. Make sure that you're using the hashtag 28 days of health. Make sure that you are sharing new products that you're using, and make sure to go to the landing page on shop.com to learn more about how to accept the 28-day challenge. Until next time, go be healthy, go be brilliant.